Have you ever wondered if you could forgive someone who walked out of your life and never looked back? Margaret Sullivan's cell phone rang at 3:47 in the morning. In the darkness of her Nashville bedroom, she reached for it with trembling hands, her heart already racing with that ancient maternal instinct that tells you something is about to change. "Hello." Her voice was barely a whisper. Silence, then breathing. Then a voice she hadn't heard in 5 years. "Mom, ... Is that you?" The world stopped. Margaret felt tears forming before she even understood why. Claire, on the other end, her 27-year-old daughter began to sob desperate, broken sobs that carried years of pain. "Mom, I need help." This is the story of Margaret Sullivan, a 58-year-old teacher living alone in Nashville, Tennessee, and the daughter who disappeared 5 years ago, leaving only silence and a shattered heart. To understand this call at 3:47 a.m., we need to go back to when things were whole. Margaret was 31 when Claire was born on a rainy April morning. She came into the world screaming, but the moment the nurse placed her on Margaret's chest, she quieted. Those dark blue eyes stared up as if to say, "I've been waiting for you." The early years were magic. Claire loved books before she could read, told elaborate stories to stuffed animals, had wild curly hair and a laugh like wind chimes. Her father, David, an architect, would lift her onto his shoulders to see the world. Sunday mornings meant pancakes and newspapers. Summer evenings meant fireflies and jars and sitting on the porch as Tennessee heat gave way to cooler air. They were happy. Beautifully, ordinarily happy, unaware that happiness is more fragile than we think. Claire was 13 when David died in a car accident on a rainy highway. One moment he was driving home, the next, he was gone. Margaret's scream when the police came changed something in Claire. It was the moment she stopped believing the world was safe. At the funeral, Claire sat in a too-tight black dress, staring at the casket, trying to understand how her father, who'd helped with homework 3 days ago, could be inside that box. Margaret tried to hold it together. She went back to teaching, made dinners, attended conferences, but at night, she would sit in David's office and cry so hard she couldn't breathe. Claire heard everything. At 13, she decided she needed to be strong for both of them. She stopped crying. She became the perfect daughter, straight A's. No complaints, no problems. But buried anger has to go somewhere. By 18, Claire had been accepted to university with a scholarship to study architecture, her father's dream. But she didn't want it anymore. Every thought of architecture reminded her of what she'd lost. She met Daniel at a graduation party, 23. Rough around the edges, exciting in a dangerous way, everything David wasn't. Margaret saw the warning signs immediately. When she expressed concern, Claire shut down. "You don't trust me. I trust you." "I don't trust him. You don't get to control my life just because Dad's gone." It was the first time either acknowledged that David's death had broken something between them. The arguments became a pattern. Margaret, terrified of losing another person she loved, held tighter. Claire, suffocating under grief and a mother's fear, pulled away harder. When Claire announced she was moving to Seattle with Daniel, Margaret felt the ground fall away. "You're throwing your life away," Margaret sighed, voice shaking. "My life, not yours. Your father would be so disappointed." "Don't you dare," Claire screamed. "He's dead." "He has been dead for 5 years, and you've been so busy grieving you never noticed I was grieving too. You never asked if I was okay. You just needed me to be perfect. That's not fair. None of this is fair. Dad died and you checked out and I had to hold everything together. And now I finally want something for myself and you can't stand it." Margaret stood there, tears streaming, unable to find words to bridge the gap. "If you leave with him," Margaret said quietly, "I don't know if I can support you." Claire's face hardened. "Then I guess you've made your choice." "Claire, I'm done. Mom, I'm done carrying Dad's ghost between us." She packed that night. Margaret watched from the doorway. "Please, don't go." "I have to." The door closed at 11:43 p.m. on December 15th. Margaret watched the truck pull away, taking her daughter into darkness. The next morning, Claire's phone went to voicemail. By afternoon, Margaret was blocked. Time doesn't heal. It just teaches you to live with the wound. For 5 years, Margaret lived in a house to quiet. She kept Claire's room exactly as she'd left it. She bought birthday presents every year, wrapping them carefully, storing them in the closet, love, with nowhere to go. She wrote letters she never sent. Hundreds of letters over 5 years, kept in a shoebox. A one-sided conversation. At night, she prayed for Claire's safety, for her happiness, and for forgiveness for all the ways she'd failed as a mother. Because those 5 years taught Margaret the truth of what Claire had said. Had she made Claire responsible for her happiness? Had she been so consumed by grief she'd failed to see Claire's? The answer was yes. Margaret learned to forgive herself for being human, for being broken, for being a mother who loves so much, it came out wrong. Her friends told her to move on, but how do you stop being a mother? Forgiveness, Margaret learned, isn't a straight line. Some days she had peace. Other days, anger flared up. She learned that forgiving didn't mean Claire was right or Margaret was wrong. It meant choosing not to carry the weight, choosing peace over being right. But the hardest part was forgiving herself. You're not guilty, her therapist would say. You're a human. It took years to believe that. By year 5, she'd almost convinced herself she'd made peace with it. Then the phone rang at 3:47 a.m. Mom, I need help. Margaret's mind raced. What happened? Are you hurt? I'm in Seattle. I'm not hurt, but Mom ... Double quotes, Claire's voice cracked. Daniel left 3 months ago when I told him I was pregnant. The words hit like blows. Pregnant. Left 3 months ago. I had the baby 2 weeks ago. A girl. I named her Hope. Claire was crying. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have money. I lost my apartment. I'm at a shelter. I look at her and I am so scared because I do want to know how to be a mom and I am failing her and I could only think of you. I know I don't have the right. Stop, Margaret said through tears. Come home. What? Come home. Claire, both of you. But after everything I said, after 5 years, none of that matters. You need help. You have a baby. And you have a mother who never stopped loving you. Come home. Hope's newborn cry filled the background. I'm so sorry, Mom. We'll talk about everything. But first, come home. When can you get here? There's a bus tomorrow. Tell me when and where. I'll be there. I promise. After hanging up, Margaret sat on her kitchen floor and cried. 5 years of carrying weight. Suddenly the possibility of setting it down. As she prepared the house, she thought about what forgiveness means. It doesn't mean pretending hurt didn't happen. It doesn't mean forgetting 5 years. It means choosing to move forward anyway. Choosing love despite pain. Margaret understood she'd been practicing forgiveness for 5 years without realizing it. Every time she chose to remember good instead of bad. Every time she prayed for Claire's happiness. Every time she bought a birthday present. Small acts of forgiveness. Quiet choices made over and over until forgiveness became who she was. The bus station was crowded when Margaret arrived early, clutching a blanket she'd knitted pink and white, made Weedopi. When the Seattle bus pulled in at 4:15, her heart hammered. Then there was Claire, so thin. Dark circles, hair messy, sweatpants, and an oversized hoodie. A diaper bag over one shoulder, and in her arms, wrapped in a worn pink blanket, a tiny baby. Their eyes met. 5 years of unsaid words hung between them. Margaret started walking, arms already opening. Claire's face crumpled. Margaret wrapped her arms around both of them. Claire collapsed into her mother's shoulder, sobbing from somewhere deep in her soul. I'm so sorry. You're home now. Between them, Hope made a small sound. Margaret pulled back to see her granddaughter for the first time. Beautiful. Dark eyes, dark hair, tiny fingers. Pure love rushed through Margaret. Can I hold her? Claire nodded. Hope settled immediately against Margaret. She likes you, Claire said through tears. Hope, Margaret said softly. It's perfect. I named her Hope because even when everything was falling apart, I still had this tiny hope that maybe you'd forgive me, that maybe I could come home. Margaret looked at this tiny person. I already forgave you, Claire. Long before you called. How could you? Because carrying anger was destroying me. Because I had to forgive myself first for my mistakes, for being imperfect. Once I learned that, forgiving you became possible. They stood there, 3 generations, as the world rushed around them. Not a magical healing, just a beginning. Let's go home. In the car, Claire looked out at familiar Nashville streets. Everything looks the same. A lot is the same. But I've changed. How? I learned that loving someone doesn't mean controlling them, that sometimes the hardest thing is letting go and trusting. They'll find their way back. At the house, Claire froze at her bedroom. You didn't change anything. For a long time, I kept it because I was stuck. But eventually it became a reminder that you'd always have a place here. You'd always have a home. Margaret pulled out the wrapped presents. 5 birthdays. 5 Christmases. Claire stared. You never stopped. ... I never stopped being your mother. That evening they talked. Claire told her about Seattle, the excitement at first. Then the reality of Daniel's drinking. His temper. How he left when she told him about the pregnancy. Why didn't you come home sooner? Pride. And shame. You were right and I couldn't admit it. I'm sorry you went through that alone. Margaret took Claire's hand. You're going to be a wonderful mother. I don't feel like it. That's normal, but you're not alone anymore. Over the following weeks, they found their rhythm. Margaret taught Claire how to care for Hope. Claire got a job. Margaret watched the baby, falling in love with this tiny person who had Claire's wild hair and David's serious eyes. One evening, 3 months later, they sat on the porch at sunset, Hope asleep in Margaret's arms. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you still miss Dad? Every day. But the grief changed. It became gentler. I can think about him and smile more than I cry. I barely remember him. Sometimes I look at Hope and think about how he'd be such a good grandfather, and I get angry all over again. He would have loved her so much. I think that's why I ran. After the end, everything hurt. You were hurting. I felt like I had to be strong, but I was falling apart too, and there was no room for both of us to be broken. Oh, Claire, I'm so sorry you were 13. You should never have had to carry that. I know now, but at the time, I had to get away. I realized that holding on to anger was only hurting me. It wasn't changing you. It was poisoning my life. So I had to ask, do I want to be right, or do I want peace? And you chose peace. I chose peace. For myself. That's the secret. Forgiveness isn't for the other person. It's for yourself. It's choosing freedom instead of staying chained to the past. I need to forgive myself, too. Yes, that's the hardest part. One small choice at a time. Every time that voice says you're not good enough, you choose to say something different. Claire leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. Thank you for letting me come home. Thank you for calling, for giving us both a second chance. 2 years have passed since that midnight call. It's Sunday morning in Nashville. The kitchen smells like pancakes and coffee. Margaret, 60, is at the stove. Hope, 2.5, sits in her high chair making a mess with blueberries. Claire, 29, is at the table with paperwork. She's been accepted back to university to study architecture, her father's dream, now her own. Morbury, Grandma. Hope demands. Margaret laughs and brings more. She looks at this little girl who came from such darkness and feels overwhelming gratitude. You're going to spoil her, Claire says, smiling. That's what grandmothers are for. They've found their rhythm. It's not perfect. There are still hard days. But now they talk through it. They've learned that silence is more dangerous than conflict. Margaret has learned something profound. Forgiveness isn't a destination, it's a practice. Every day you choose it again. Mom. Claire looks up. Yes, I never properly thanked you for taking us in, for not holding my mistakes against me. Margaret kisses her head. You don't need to thank me. That's what love does. It waits. It hopes. It forgives. But it must have been so hard it was. But you taught me that love is stronger than pride. That forgiveness is stronger than hurt. That it's never too late to begin again. Hote claps her sticky hands. Mama. Grandma. More pancake. They both laugh. This little girl who knows nothing of the pain that came before. Who only knows love and safety. That's the gift of forgiveness set. Breaks the cycle. Margaret watches them and thinks about that phone call. She almost didn't answer. It was 3:47 in the morning. She could have let it go to voicemail, but she answered. And that choice changed everything, because that's what forgiveness is. It's answering the phone at 3:47 a.m. It's saying come home when you've been hurt. It's choosing love over pride. It's believing people can change, that mistakes don't have to be final, that broken things can be mended. It's not magic. It's work. Hard, daily work that doesn't end. But it's the most important work we do. Outside, the Nashville sun rises. Inside, 3 generations share pancakes and laughter. And somewhere in that ordinary Sunday morning, there's extraordinary grace, the kind that only comes when you choose forgiveness again and again, until one day you realize you're free. Have you ever received a call that changed everything? Have you ever had to choose between holding on to hurt or opening the door to forgiveness? Remember, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the pain. It means choosing freedom over bitterness. It means choosing to answer when love calls Savan at 3:47 in the morning. What choice will you make today?